Here's the big question this show answers. How do we leverage technology and human science to positively impact our personal and professional life? The Tech Human Experience has the answer. Here's your host, Inc. 5000 tech founder, neuroscience junkie, and Navy SEAL wannabe, Javier Guerra.
Hello, my fellow tech humans. Today's guest is a seasoned IT leader with a unique background in technology and military service. He spent 22 years in the Royal Canadian Air Force and now manages multiple IT teams at USAA. Please welcome Jason Routhier. Thanks for coming, Jason. Appreciate your time today. Excited to kind of dive in here and talk a little bit about your experience and see if we can help our listeners with some advice. Did you know, to get started, did you know that according to a report by the World Economic Forum, 50% of all employees will need reskilling by the year 2025 as automation and digitization transform the workplace? Jason, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, thank you for inviting me, Javier. I'm looking forward to the conversation. And I'm actually surprised on that question that it's not more than 50%. I think that from what I'm seeing out there is that technology, as it develops more and more, it's accelerating change. And I would expect even more than 50% in that time frame will have to consider upskilling to keep up, essentially. And not just in the technology fields, but in other fields as well, because I think as you see these new technologies get implemented, they affect much more than just technology. They affect a bunch of industries that have not maybe traditionally focused on technology itself.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's with all the automation and now with, AI and all of this different intelligent technology that's coming out, it's just disrupting every facet of business. Right. And one of the things that, one of the sayings, I don't know who said it, but I think it completely makes sense, is that if organizations don't believe that they're a technology company now, like, they're not going to be in good shape, because odds are there's going to be a smaller, more nimble organization that's going to come in and take their market share because of some sort of technology that they're leveraging to provide a better service or just, deliver their market products better. So absolutely, it's fascinating to kind of be in the middle of all this right now, to see all this change happening for sure.
Agreed. And I think part of the key to understand too is the acceleration of that change. We've known for a long time that technology has increased the pace of change. But I think that what's happening, what I'm seeing now with these new tools like artificial intelligence and machine learning, it's actually accelerating the change even more. Where sure, we had horizons of, major technology changes every 5 to 10 years, that's going to shorten quite a bit, I think, in the very near future.
Yeah, it was very surprising, and I've been waiting for it, right? Because I have my ear to the ground, constantly looking for better tools or better ways to automate. And when ChatGPT came out, it was just like, wow, like, this is really good, and I didn't expect it to happen that fast. So absolutely, it's I couldn't imagine, with people that aren't ingrained into technology as much as you and I are, if they really truly understand how powerful it is, that, what's going on in their head right now, for sure.
Yeah.
So let's dive into today's topic, navigating career transitions in a technology-driven world. In this episode, we'll explore the challenges and opportunities of transitioning technology roles and how to succeed in a constantly evolving industry. We'll discuss the skills and mindsets needed to thrive in a technology-driven world and the importance of continuous learning and adaptation. So you've had a fascinating journey, Jason. It really took you from the Royal Canadian Air Force to now managing multiple technology teams at USAA. What inspired you to make those transitions, and how did you navigate them?
Yeah, that's an interesting journey. I think that part of my passion to join the military in the first place is I wanted to do just more than one thing. I wanted that ability to do different things at different times, and I wanted to take the approach of having variety in my career, but belonging to an organization that really valued people and had a very healthy culture. And then I got that in the Royal Canadian Air Force. I really felt like I was part of a family. And the advantage I had is, as a telecommunications officer, I had the latitude to do many different things, which I loved. So I did everything from radar maintenance, signals intelligence, radio frequency spectrum management, managing telecoms for a major Air Force base. I did many different things. And a lot of my colleagues did something a bit different, where they focused in one area and stayed there in that area their whole career, still had great career progression. But that flexibility to do either was really healthy for our culture. And we found that balance of encouraging people to do what they're passionate about. We saw more engagement from people in their jobs, and just that made a healthy culture all around.
Nice.
That was really fun to work with. So when I decided to retire from the military and start looking at something completely different to do, I was looking for an organization that would kind of encourage that mindset. And when I was posted down here in San Antonio a few decades ago now, people had talked to me about USAA and how great an organization it was. So when I decided to move back down to the States in 2014, I started looking at USAA and started networking and found my way on the network engineering team at the time, and really discovered that was the culture there too. So I've been really lucky, I think, because not everyone finds that, especially after leaving the military. So I consider myself very lucky to have found something at USAA that matches the approach that I wanted to take of variety in my career and being able to focus on different things.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, sorry. What was that?
Yeah, no. I was just saying that's awesome. I know that USAA has, they're just phenomenal at that organizational structure. And one of the things that I love is that, it's kind of part of their culture is that, they call HR people services. They don't call it human resources, right? It's people services. And I think that says a lot about the organization, right? They've even baked it into what they call their departments, right?
Yeah.
To be in alignment with their culture.
Yeah, the focus on people is great. And you see that every single day in the decisions that are made. Part of USAA's advantage is we don't report to shareholders. So the decisions, we really focus on what's best for our members. And they're challenging decisions sometimes, but due to our history, I think, and the record we have in serving our members, people really buy into our culture, and we have a lot of passionate employees that support those decisions on a day-to-day basis. So it makes for, again, a very healthy culture at USAA.
Absolutely. So, along those lines of, being at USAA, what technology problems what technology problems or challenges do you face in your current role, and how do you approach solving them?
So I work in workload automation, and one of the biggest challenge, I think, is convincing busy teams to invest the time in implementing more automation. So we talked, before about the acceleration of change in technology, and so the secret, I think, for any organization will be to automate. You can't do enough automation. There's a few challenges there. There's it can be stressful for people because sometimes you get the impression that, they want to automate this because they want to get rid of me. I have never found, at least in my position at USAA, I've never found that to be the case. It's more about shifting things around to automate the stuff that's automatable and focus humans on stuff that is not good to automate. and there's always something that we can refocus on. So it's about reskilling and refocusing on the things that we do better as humans.
Yeah.
And so I try to use that to kind of allay some concerns that people had when we talk about automation, but that's always a challenge out there. Once we have that kind of handled, though, there's still the constant busyness of teams with injects and everything. So sometimes it's very challenging to keep people committed to implementing automation. Automation is sometimes there's quick wins, but a lot of it is very strategic, and it takes time and effort. And keeping teams focused on that is challenging because of constant injects that we get, on a day-to-day basis. So that requires effort on its own, is to create a stability there in terms of the long-term commitment for automation.
And when you say injects, just to clarify, you're talking about maybe fires that come up, or different things, emergencies that need to be handled, or different projects that may be, kind of placed on the docket, so to speak, that need to get taken care of.
That's right. Yeah. Injects, also known as fire drills. We've had a lot of that lately because because there's a lot of regulation around banking and insurance and things like that. And there's a lot of high profile cases in the news that you'll see where, regulators are tightening the belt in terms of, rules and regulations a lot. So that does create a lot of very high priority injects, and it's very constant. And so that's what I'm talking about. Like those are easy to distract from your long-term goals.
Yep.
You have to deal with them. But in the end, you also have to balance your priorities to make sure you don't shoot yourself in the foot and stop innovating and stop implementing great technology over time, because then you'll get left behind.
Yeah, so that's a constant struggle for me, right? Because I'm a natural visionary, right? And so I'm constantly looking for ways to get ahead of the curve and to basically skate to where the puck is going to be, how Wayne Gretzky would put it. And this literally just happened yesterday, is that I have to have my team to kind of check myself. And we operate on an operating system to where every 90 days we're setting quarterly rocks, and we're not supposed to change those rocks or those big projects without getting the leadership team's buy-in. Right. And so that kind of keeps us hyper focused. And naturally, from a neuroscience perspective and a human behavior perspective, the brain typically will naturally go off course every 90 days. So every quarter we're coming back to kind of reset the steering of the ship, so to speak.
Yeah. I like that. We've been working in a kind of an agile methodology here with like quarterly planning sessions. And I like the quarter. It's a really good planning horizon for what we do. In my team. So yeah, definitely identify with that.
And so, from a technology perspective, what does your technology utopia look like, would you say? And like the ideal technology scenario, utopia, and how do you think we can get there?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think that the way I look at that is, it's hard to know what you don't know. And I'll quote a few things. Like I admire Steve Jobs for this. Steve never really, bought into asking a lot of people what they thought about stuff. He kind of thought of, the ideas he had. He in his autobiography, you'll see he talks about, or not autobiography, in the biography that was written, one of them. It talks about Steve Jobs would create this reality bubble where he would, believe in something so much, and he would not accept no for an answer. And I think innovation, has to be steeped in that, in really believing in your idea and pushing it as much as you can. He quoted often someone from Ford. I forget the person's name. But someone from Ford a long time ago had said, if I had asked what people wanted, they would have said faster horses. Right. So sometimes you got to think differently. And once you've started implementing some of those ideas, a lot of times you'll find people will say things like, why didn't we think about this before? Or how did we live without this, right? And so when I think about, technology utopia or the next big thing, it depends on your mindset. Some people are way better at thinking at these out of, uh, out of the ordinary ideas to implement. And I think the important part is to encourage them and include them in your circles to make sure that you have that constant input of fresh and new ideas like that.
Yeah, and I know USA is really good at that, right? I mean, they have an innovation. You guys have an innovation center,
Yep.
and it's just one of those great cultures that we actually, it's an inspiration for us to emulate within our culture, is giving people a voice and like listening to everybody and actually pulling out of them their ideas and recommendations, and then kind of taking those collectively and helping the organization to evolve as the world evolves and technology evolves, for sure.
That's right. The best example I've seen at USAA is we call it a hackathon, where we dedicate some time. I think it's about once a year. There's time dedicated where people can volunteer to become part of a session that over the course of a week, you leave your day-to-day job behind and you focus on something that, people have said, hey, I think this is a good idea. Let's work on it. They dedicate themselves to that for a week. And lo and behold, a lot of really great innovations at USAA have come out of those focus sessions. So
Nice.
taking the time to do that kind of thing is really important if you want to innovate.
Absolutely. And it's kind of like, what I tell people is, how when you're taking a shower, like ideas will just come to you. It's because you're not like sitting there thinking and trying to solve problems. And if you study some of the best leaders in the world and geniuses in the world, like Einstein, I think he got the theory of relativity, not when he was trying to solve the problem. He got it when he was like about to step on the bus. It just hit him like a ton of bricks. And so, I kind of have my routine of a night routine and a morning routine of meditation. I have my own space, my closet, that is there for me to shut my mind off, right? And kind of just be present and wait for those types of things to come for me. Tesla did that as well, right? Like Tesla would sit in a dark room and just, do all his genius stuff, craziness.
Yeah.
So,
similar thing here. I do my best thinking, I think, when I go do my jog in the morning. That's when I do my best thinking, I think.
Yeah. It's like meditation in action.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. So, making career transitions, can be mentally challenging. I'm sure we could all agree with that. What were some of the mental obstacles or struggles you faced when switching from the Royal Canadian Air Force to corporate America, and how did you overcome them?
All right. So I think the biggest concern I had when I decided to leave the military was this fear about having to watch my back. I think that, because of that very close-knit family that is in any military organization, right? Because of what you do, you develop this really close-knit family culture. I was really stressed out about leaving that and just going into the corporate world and just having to watch my back all the time and not being able to focus completely on what I was passionate about and what I was going to do. I think the secret for me, and again, very lucky to have found out about USAA and the culture there, where, before I even joined, people were talking about how it had a family culture. Now, what helps USAA is that we serve military members and their families. So obviously the culture is going to be very close to that. And I think that was the key for me to overcome my fear, is to target a company where I knew that there was going to be that close-knit family culture. That helped me kind of focus my search. There were other companies that I had, good intelligence about the inside culture. So USAA wasn't the only one, but it's definitely the one I targeted the most because I had good contacts within the company and was able to find out a lot about the culture. And so for me, like I said, the secret was trying to find contacts within companies that I could learn about the culture and make sure I targeted the right ones, not just randomly, right? And that reduced the stress quite a bit when I started learning about the culture within the companies I was applying for.
So leveraging your network, right? And that's something that's
key.
That's something that I still struggle with, right? And I think we all struggle with that, is that like so many times, I would consider myself an expert at this type of about mindset and just being able to leverage different resources to build companies or whatever. But still, I find myself thinking, or not so much thinking that I don't have the resources, but not even thinking about the resources that I have at my disposal all around me, right? All the technologies, all the people, all the friends, all the family, all the people I know at these different corporations. If I want to accomplish something, if I would just sit down and write down all the resources at my fingertips, I could get to whatever I'm trying to accomplish much faster, or I could solve a problem much faster. And a lot of times people, I think, struggle with asking for help or
That's
just
right.
going and getting advice and that triangulation. But it's so powerful. If you study the most successful people in the world, that's what they do. That's what they have board of directors. It's a triangulation method of they're just bouncing ideas off of each other, and they're coming to better solutions by using, the two heads are better than one method, so to speak.
Yeah. And you're right about the people are reluctant to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
To various degrees. I was actually more comfortable asking for help, but what the challenge I had to work through is I'm an introvert. And so it took a lot of energy for me to reach out to my network and leverage that. I think what helped me is I left the military before knowing that I had a secure job at the other end. So that I kind of did that on purpose because it really made me focus to come out of my shell as an introvert and really push for making connections and mine, between leaving the military and joining USAA, my network expanded tremendously during that time because I made the effort and took some risk, kind of sticking my neck out and reaching out to people and trying to connect. And I was very surprised at the amount of engagement I got from asking for help and asking to connect. People were very engaging, not just from within USAA, but across the different types of companies that I was reaching out to. So I think being a veteran also helps because there's a level of trust there that's implicit in our culture in Canada and the US both. So that helps a lot. But I would say even outside of that, don't be shy to expand your network and leverage it. People want to help.
Yeah, absolutely. You took the words right out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was thinking of, is that people, they generally want to help. And it makes me think of the story about Steve Jobs. I think he reached out to the guy at Microsoft. I'm forgetting Bill Gates. I think he maybe reached out to Bill Gates when he was like 12 years old, called him on the phone. He answered and he's like, "Hey, I'm building some computers. I need some spare parts." And Bill Gates ended up giving him the spare parts and gave him a job at Microsoft. And that's how he really kind of started get his feet wet in corporate technology, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, people want to help, and it's just we need to take the actions and take that first step. So that's good stuff. So your background in the Royal Canadian Air Force, and the ability to transition into different roles, multiple times, and being at a pretty large organization and very well-established organization that has a lot of their stuff together in a lot of areas, right? And that keeping that in mind, how do you achieve peak performance in your work? And like, what role does mindset, environment, and technology play in that?
I think for me, the key thing in my career has always been listening a lot.
Okay.
Listen a lot before you do stuff. And it depends, right? There's a balance to achieve. Sometimes decisions need to be made quickly because there's a short mandatory due date or something like that. But as much as I can, the success to my career has been based on listening to my team and my colleagues and asking for opinions and getting as much input as I can before I make a decision. Again, based on priority, due dates, and all that. But I think that's been the most useful skill that I've had in my career, is the ability to reach out and not assume that I know the right answer right off the bat. In fact, I'd rather assume that I don't, and I want to get some input, and sometimes I go with my gut feel that I had in the first place. But a lot of times I learn something new with those inputs, and I change my approach based on that. And again, achieved great success with that approach.
Yeah, and I could actually do an entire episode on this, if not multiple episodes. But there's a great framework that comes from MIT that I've actually been through a training or a certification process through, and it's Theory U. And there's 4 levels of listening in there, and it really talks about the different levels of listening and kind of the state of consciousness almost that you need to be in and able to effectively listen. And it's pretty fascinating stuff. And it's kind of weird to me that more organizations or more leaders or education systems don't teach like deeper listening skills, because it's extremely powerful, but we have to get out of our own head, without getting out of our own head and our own frame of ego of thinking that we know everything. It's very difficult to listen, right? We're typically listening just to respond. Or we're listening and we already think we know where they're going and we already think we know the answer. But listening is actually much, much more of a complex skill, so to speak.
That's right. It's not as simple as people think. There's a lot of skill development in that area that I think we all could benefit from. And I think part of the key there is to be humble, because you have to be humble to have that mindset of constantly, hey, I may not know the best answer here. I'm going to go ask people's opinion and things. What I'd say though is that you have to be careful, right? You have to balance that, because there's the whole concept of analysis paralysis.
Oh yeah.
You can't get into that situation either, right? So as with most things, you have to achieve that balance of get input, but don't wait too long, because then you're going to be starting to delay key decisions or affect the nimbleness of the business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jason, thank you for sharing your career journey and insights with us. If listeners want to learn more about USAA, you can go to USAA.com and, be sure to connect with Jason on LinkedIn. He's at www.linkedin.com/IN/Jason Routhier. Routhier is spelled ROUTHIER. Web addresses and social media handles will be in the show description. And listeners, be sure to reflect on your career journey and write down any mental obstacles or struggles that may have held you back. Just do that right now. Take out a piece of pen and paper and just write down, maybe a few mental obstacles or struggles that may have held you back in the past or may be currently holding you back. And also be sure to write down ideas of how you can overcome them and make faster progress towards your goals. Help your fellow humans. Also, please help your fellow humans. Share this podcast, leave a review, and follow me on LinkedIn and other social platforms at Javier Guerra 360. That's JAVIER GUERRA 360. Thanks again, and see you next time on the Tech Human Experience.
Thanks for having me, Javier. It was a great conversation.
The Tech Human Experience